Greetings from the cosmic horrors. The stars are right once again, and the great old ones are allowed to talk about for 30 plus minutes. H.P. Lovecraft, the horror writer, is a genre unto himself. I'm your cosmic host, Mark Griffin, executive of Lovecraft Estate on Yaga, joined in by Richard Wilson, who just keeps on stalking. Today's guests are Steve Hudson and P.G. Woodside of the Big Biting Pig, a horror film company that was based out of Massville, Kentucky from 2008 to 2016. And how are y'all doing today?
Good.
So far, so good.
All righty, sounds good. First question before we start talking about Big Biting Pig, I want to talk about another film company, Cornucopia, and a movie that was made in Paducah called The Third Floor. And that was y'all's first exposure to making movies, wasn't it?
That started it all. Yeah. That is the root of everything. So PJ and I knew each other from acting. We both did a lot of stage acting, and I was doing a play in Paducah with a couple guys that I didn't know at the time, but we wound up meeting through the play. And when that was over, we started kicking around, possibly making a movie. One of them had minimal filmmaking experience, and I had always written since I was a kid. So I had some stories that I had written. I'm like, well, let me turn one of them into a screenplay, and maybe we could do this. And we knew a lot of actors, so we had a pretty good group of actors to pull from. So that was the easy part. But I just kind of turned one of my old stories into a script, and so one of the guy who had a little filmmaking experience, his name's Adam, he borrowed somebody's camera, and we just shot the damn thing. And it took us about, I think we shot it over 6 months, and somehow we got it done. And then it came the editing aspect of it, and none of us had any editing experience at all, zero. But I knew PJ had a little editing experience doing a few commercials, and we were friends because we had acted together in the past. So I got in touch with her and asked her if she was interested in maybe helping us edit this movie. And so she joined up. And after we were all done with The Third Floor, we did it. We made the movie. And after that was over, those two guys were burned out because it's a lot of work, and they were burned out. And I was like, just felt like I was warming up. I'm like, all right, we've done one. I've got a little bit of a feel for how to do this now. So I'm ready to do another one. And they didn't want anything to do with it. So I talked to PJ, and I somehow talked her to join me on this crazy run, and she did. And we made 10 feature length, no budget movies in 9 years.
It's quite a feat, I have to say.
So that's kind of,
that's very impressive.
that's the long and short of it. That's the story you get when you ask about The Third Floor.
Yeah, the Third Floor is not a very good movie, and I think y'all admitted that y'all learned a lot of from the mistakes of all that. And so, what were some of the mistakes that y'all learned from that and avoided?
Oh, good Lord! That was really our that was our film school. So, yeah. I didn't know anything about making a movie, so that was just pure trial and error. That was our trial and error film school. We make The Third Floor. Not a good movie. The script needed to be rewritten about 10 times. The movie, I think, runs 100 minutes. In reality, it should probably be around 60 minutes. We got this scene at the end where you ask this old priest about the third floor, and that son of a bitch rambles on for like 30 minutes. It's like, oh my gosh, it's like, what a mistake that was to ask this guy about it. But yeah, so it's got a lot of fat, and that's how you learn. It's trial and error. So the editing had, that was one of the big mistakes. It's like half of that movie is fat that needed to be cut. The screenplay needed to be rewritten several times. The acting is very broad because we came from a theater background. So it's one of the big things between theater and film is in theater, you're taught to act for the person in the back row, like 300 seats back. You're acting for him or her so that they can see what's going on. Well, when you're filming in front of a camera, it's equivalent to like somebody being right up in your face. You're acting for the camera, which is right there in front of your face. So you have to be much more subtle with acting. It's a big difference, and all of those things are the big things we learned from The Third Floor. Yeah, it's our training film.
Do you have anything to add, PJ?
No, well, I would say I learned never to agree to edit a movie that you've never seen any of the footage of. Yeah, that was very challenging. And it's like, oh yeah, we did this part of the scene over here when this person was here, and we did this other part of the scene with this person over here, and we're going to cut them together so it looks like they're talking to each other, and they were in completely different locations. It's like, okay, I guess I'll go to YouTube film school real quick, which is but you do learn by doing. One of the things I say about how we learned to do movies was that it was just beginning to be possible to get the equipment and to get the editing stuff and to get sound equipment and to do it from your desk at your house, which hadn't been possible 10 years before that, and for any money that anybody could afford. So for almost nothing we could do this and learn by doing, and that's basically what we did.
You also acted the movie too, didn't you, PJ?
I did. Well, Steve did too. But yes, that's how I kind of got started with it. Steve asked me to play this part on it. And then, at the end of it, like, I'm not sure what we do with this footage now. So I think you looked into having somebody else edit it for you, Steve, and that was going to be pretty cumbersome. So we kind of edited
it. Was just, yeah.
So y'all were just literally looking on the job with everything, I guess.
Yeah, we kind of edited on my dining room table with the laptop and, figuring it out.
All right. And the first film that y'all did together,
first
off, y'all.
I was just going to say that was training school for editing. Yeah.
Okay. First off, y'all decided to name your company Big Biting Pig. Where did that name come from?
Oh, that's a combination of both of us. It's not a good answer. It's the name's a lot more entertaining than the answer. But I came up with I wanted it to be Big Pig something because it's so stupid. When I was a kid, my mom had a real estate agency, and she needed a name for it. And I was like 10, and I threw out the idea of, I think it was Big Pig Realty. And she didn't go for it, but that always stuck in my mind. And so when I was like, I got to come up with a name, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna dig back into the depths of my mind here and go with something Big Pig. And PJ came up with the biting, so Big Biting Pig.
But
it's not a good story.
Well, what I bring to it though was that I had worked with. I've been working with students and talking about concrete versus abstract, and I know that when you have a concrete image of something, you can remember it better. So that's why I was like, okay, we can do Big Pig, but let's put some kind of adjective in there to give it a little more bite. So basically that's why I was on board with it.
Well, it's a name that sticks. You definitely remember it.
If you don't remember the name, you remember the image.
Yeah, with all the millions of film companies out there, I do remember y'all's the best. And the first movie y'all did together.
Well, thanks. That's what we were going for.
Yeah. The first movie y'all did together was Maniac on the Loose, and I have to say it's probably my favorite of all y'all's movies y'all done. And so, how did I love
Maniac on the Loose? Well, I wrote the script for Maniac on the Loose. Like I said, those other two guys were burned out, and I had been working on that script for the next movie to do, and they wanted out, so. I got PJ on board and we just shot it. So we had a little bit of experience at this point, and we still made a lot of mistakes with this one, but not as much as with The Third Floor. I think, we grew quite a bit just from that. I really do call it film school. But yeah, that was it. I just wrote the script, talked to PJ. We somehow came up with the schedule. Another thing that we got a lot better with, that scheduling that movie was a nightmare, because I was working around a lot of other people's schedules. We learned after that that people need to work around our schedule. So that's one of the big things we learned from Maniac on the Loose. But we made it work. Again, that movie's longer than it should be. It probably goes on a little more than it should, and the performances are still broad for the most part. Especially my character, I'm way over the top in that. And Nick, who plays Dr. Grimm, he's pretty over the top, but I love his over the topness in that movie. But we just did it. Yeah, again, we just did it. We wrote the script, and we had some connections where we were able to get that hospital for some of the scenes, and we just shot it, and again, we just shot it and we did it.
The house was the people who owned the house were taking a trip to Europe, so they were gone for several weeks while we were traipsing in and out of their house filming. So that worked out as well.
Well, that's good. I was always curious about how y'all found the houses that y'all were in. I was wondering how people would allow you to film in there. So,
well, people love it around here. I mean, they've really, for the most part, we have people offering us stuff, especially haunted houses. They're always like, "Oh, I know this really creepy old house." It's like, well, that's not usually the thing we have trouble finding. It's usually the regular kinds of places. The house with a hot tub that we have tried, or things like that. They're sort of specialized.
I have to say, one of the things I'm impressed with y'all is y'all get a very good cast of actors to be in your movies. It's almost like a repertory theater, because you'll see a lot of the same actors come in, play in different characters and everything. And so is it hard to keep like a repertory of them, or are they all just begging to be in the movies?
Oh yeah, we've never had a hard time. We've never had a hard time actually casting the movie. Some parts are, some of the parts that we write, we unintentionally make, kind of make it where only a certain type of person is available. So that limits the options, but we typically always had multiple options for all of the parts. And we always hold, after Maniac on the Loose, this was another mistake we made with Maniac on the Loose. See, as I mentioned before, I had been doing a lot of theater, and PJ too. So I had connections of the regional theater groups in Madisonville, in Paducah, and in Owensboro, because I had done acting in all of those areas. So I got to know a lot of actors. So it was pretty easy, because a lot of theater actors want to do movies. In this region of Western Kentucky, there's not a lot of opportunity to do movies. So it was advantageous for everybody involved to be involved in it. So that's just never been an issue for us, being able to cast our movies.
It was in the very, very beginning. I think Maniac on the Loose and Widow, we had a little bit, but once we started doing movies and we had people who heard about it and knew people who'd done it, and crew was probably harder to come by than the actors in the beginning. But once we started holding auditions, the thing that we really, holding auditions and people competing for the parts, I think made them, it created this situation where they made a commitment to us. We told them what schedule. Once we created a schedule, it's like we're sticking to the schedule, so they knew exactly when they were expected. And we've very few times have we had to replace somebody. Usually it's been like a one-day thing where somebody got sick and couldn't show up. One time we replaced a part that we had already filmed the person a few times, but for the most part, we've done really well on that.
Yeah, one of my favorite actors is Randy Hardesty. Hardesty? Say his name?
Hardesty.
Yeah, Randy Hardesty. Yeah, he's lawyer. Awesome.
I believe he's been in almost like every movie except for
one. He was in everything, at least a minor part. I mean, in our early movies, he always had a big part. He wasn't in our last movie, It Lives in the Attic, but was he? Yeah. Otherwise, I think he's had a little part, at least a little part in everything except for that. Yeah, he's one of those guys who's almost in all of our movies. There are, is it 2 or 3 people, PJ, who are in all of our movies? Me, I'm in every one. Michael Kuhn is in every one, and I think you're in every one too.
I'm in every one, and one of them I'm a poster on the wall, but yeah.
Yeah, one of them, she's a picture on the wall, but she's still there. Yeah.
Yeah. Michael Kuhn came a long ways. He was just kind of like almost like a, just almost like a, standby actor. He's like pushing a broom. He's actually the first person you see full face in Maniac on the Loose. And then he's like doing full-fledged acting, towards the ends.
Yeah. That's Michael Kuhn is my nephew, actually. So I used in that whole opening scene in Maniac on the Loose, you see John Bromley's legs, you see a doctor down the hallway distantly, and you see a janitor pushing a broom. That's all Michael. So that day of shooting was just me holding a camera and him doing all those little acting parts. So that was the introduction for Michael. That's a pretty cool little scene because he's playing every one of those parts.
That's quite impressive.
And then, of course, later on, yeah, go ahead.
So how did he do that? I mean, basically, it was all one continuous take, wasn't it? So what did he do? Go to another stairs?
No, we cut that together. Yeah, we cut those parts together. So he did the legs first. I just filmed his legs coming out of the room and going down the hall and running down the stairs. And then I just took a shot of him. Yeah, he dressed up like a doctor, and I did the point of view shot of John Bromley, the serial killer, as he comes out of his room, and you see down the hall there's a doctor who kind of walks down the hall and then leaves. And then we just shot him as the janitor, another point of view shot of the John Bromley killer. So
that's impressive.
It's pretty easy. You just shoot each individual parts and slice them together.
Yeah, I couldn't even tell that they were edited together. It looked like one continuous shot.
Well, that's what we like to hear.
Yeah. And then next show did Goat Sucker, another good movie. And all that, which
we actually did Widow. We actually did Widow next.
I thought y'all did Goat.
Yeah, that was our crazy year. So we did.
Yeah, that's true.
That was our crazy year where we went insane and shot 2 movies back to back. We shot Goatsucker first, and then when we were done shooting Goatsucker, I think we took a week off and shot Widow. And then we edited them at the same time and premiered those as a double feature at the world premiere. It was insane, and we never did it again.
Yeah, it was Widow ended up being a bit rushed. I re-edited that later, and I feel a lot better about it. But you're right. Yeah, I always try to get those backwards. I don't know why, but it's the same year.
And so, Widow was your directorial debut, wasn't it, PJ?
Huh?
That was your directorial debut, Widow.
Yes.
So yeah, how was that?
Right, wasn't the first screenplay I'd written, but it was the first screenplay that got produced and directed. A little bit scary, but most of it was in my house. And there's some things in there when I look at it, I feel really proud of my kind of visual eye in that when it's some of the shots. I think the story's a little slow here and there, but it really it has an impact at the end, and it again probably needs to be cut by about 10 minutes.
I love some of the film noir elements you had in it, especially when the funeral home and Randy Hardis opens the door and you see his outline and everything. I love those shots.
Mm-hmm. Right,
those are really good.
That was the first movie where we played around with lighting a little bit. That was the first movie we did that, because Maniac on the Loose, minimal lighting. That's another issue with that movie. It's very grainy and dark, and because we barely used any lights. Most of the lights we used in that was natural lighting. So with Widow and Goatsucker was filmed outside during the day, so we didn't need a lot of extra lights on that. But Widow, yeah, most of it shot at night, and that was the first time we really kind of experimented with lighting a bit. I thought it turned out pretty good for us messing around with lights for the first time.
And Widow was more.
Sorry.
I was going to say Widow is like your more serious movie, as opposed to like Goatsucker and a Maniac on the Loose. Did y'all intentionally do that? Do a more serious movie? Or
that's just our differences in styles. I'm more of a psychological thriller kind of a writer. I like the internal. Is it real or is it not real? That's one of my favorite kinds of genres. So that just comes from my brain. We always say that I'm the crazy and Steve is too creepy and I'm the crazy. That's how
that sounds like a good description. Because you do have like you know, they're just like almost like a psychological twist, like you don't know what is reality or not in your films. And
Right.
and Steve, in your movies, it seemed like everybody's a bad guy, and yet everybody deserves, you know, what they get done to them.
That's what it turns out. Yeah, a lot of my movies, you think somebody's a good guy, and it turns out they're not so good afterwards. Yeah, that happens a lot with mine. Yeah, we're just different that way. Yeah, we just have, you know, two different minds. So that's kind of one of the other interesting aspects of Big Biting Pig is the differences in our movies. I would do a movie one year, and then PJ would do the next one, and they would be a little different flavor.
That they would be.
But for sure, we were able to also reinforce. I mean, the collaboration, I think, was really good because you don't always see everything if you're the only person making the decisions. And by collaborating that way, we got two different strengths, two people with different strengths looking at things. And he always made the decisions for his movies, but I had a lot of input, and same for my movies. He had a lot of input. So.
Can you give an example, you know, of the input y'all had, like on each other's film?
You know, just all of them overall. I think in the writing, Steve is really strong on like structure and plot pieces. I'm really strong on character. So I would, for example, ask a question about a character and say, this part, I don't think this character would actually do this. What if they said this instead? Steve, you want to?
Yeah, and it's also on set because it's two different sets of eyes. So a lot of times, if PJ's directing the movie, before we move on to the next shot, she'll often say, "What do you think? Do you see anything else that needs to be done?" And you know, sometimes I'll think, well, it'd be nice to have another take of them doing it this way. That way, we have some options in editing and that sort of thing. So, because you really do focus on you really kind of zone in on certain things as a director, and having the producer, because we're both producing all of every movie, we're both the producers, but having the producer there to just give you that extra set of eyes, it's a big deal. Yeah, and that happened a lot.
Yeah, and as an editor, I would say, since I did a lot of the final editing stuff, we often did the big picture editing separately, but I would see things when he was dealing with the actors and the shots. I would see little things and say, I think you'll want to get another shot of that. Or I think you need a shot of this because we didn't write it down, but it may be helpful for hooking things together. But we got better at that over the years. We did one scene for Hell is Full that I think we took an hour on a shot, which probably should have taken 10 minutes. And that was just because I wasn't very experienced on the camera, and, you know, I had to learn.
Yeah. Speaking of which, that's the next movie y'all did, Hell is Full, which is a very different take on the zombie film. Y'all center more on the people who become the zombies than anything else.
Yeah, that was an idea I had for a little while. I actually came up with that idea right before we started shooting Goatsucker, and I'm like, oh man, that's a good idea. You know, just some. It's the same. You know, I didn't want to stray too far from the classic George Romero type zombie. I wanted all that to kind of stay the same, but I just wanted to tell it in a different way, where the zombie is the main character. The funny thing about Hell is Full is when people found out it was a zombie movie, we got so many people who were saying, "Oh, I want to be a zombie. Let me be one of the extra zombies in the movie." And we were always like, "It's not that kind of a zombie movie." In this zombie movie, if you have a role as a zombie, you've got a big part, because the basis of the movie is that it's told backwards. So if somebody turns into a zombie, we go back in time somebody shows up as a zombie, like character A will get bitten by character B. Then we go back in time to show how character B became the zombie. So that's the basis of that. And I thought that was a pretty fun way to approach the zombie genre.
Yeah, it definitely gave it a little fresh take. But you didn't drag it out like Walking Dead or anything.
Oh boy, I remember when The Walking Dead was good.
Yeah.
A long time ago.
And then the next film, before Annabelle, we have Creepy Doll. And so PJ, were you inspired by Susie Andrews' Paranormal Babies before you made the movie?
Yes. Yes, we were set up at a convention in Lexington, I think, and at a horror convention. And she was at the booth next to ours with her creepy dolls and paranormal babies, I think is what hers was called. And absolutely, because at first I was like, oh, those are so weird. And then they kind of grow on you. And so I wrote the script knowing that I wanted to use her strengths, her skills in making the dolls.
You know, she made 3 dolls for the one in the movie, did she not?
Yes, she did.
Yeah.
She did. I wanted 2 that were similar but a little different, which there were a couple things that I did in that movie that I think give it its real creepiness. And one is that the doll does look different slightly. You have the really creepy one at the end, but you have 2 that are, one of them is looking straight at you and one of them is just kind of gazing off. The other thing is using the point of view of the doll a lot, so that it's as if you're looking at the room and you're looking at the people as if you're the doll, which gives the doll a whole different, weight in the movie, I think. Because I've watched some other doll movies and I've thought they don't do anything with the, like maybe the doll acts out or something, but you don't see the world from the doll's point of view.
Yeah, not often.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the Child's Play movies as far as if they're showing stuff from, like, say, the Chucky character point of view, but I can't think of any instances of that type of thing.
I don't think that there was like Stuart Gordon did a movie called Dolls, but he did everything at camera angle from the doll's point of view, but never from like from their actual POV.
Right.
No, then
yeah.
Right.
So yeah, it was fun, and I think it gives it a bit of creepiness.
Yeah, and I don't think Annabelle ever did anything like that either. So,
right.
Yeah. And okay, and then next up would be Spirit Stalkers. And that was y'all's I guess like your paranormal investigators. And that was a fun one.
Yeah. I enjoy that one. That's I always had the idea. I used to watch Ghost Hunters, and I always thought it was interesting that most of their shows end with the ghost hunter people telling their client like look, if there's a ghost living here, you've survived, you're fine. They might scare you, but they're not hurting you. There's nothing wrong, so you really don't have anything to worry about. And I always thought, boy, wouldn't it be interesting if they kind of laid that on, and then like the next day something did happen to that person that they just reassured would never happen. That's kind of where I got the idea for that. And I always thought that was fun too, because it's kind of a collision of old style. We have an old time haunted house movie with PJ's character, and then more of the modern paranormal investigative group where I play the lead investigator. And we're telling the story from both of those different angles, and then eventually they collide, which I kind of do a lot in my movies, where I kind of tell different stories and eventually they intersect at some point. But I thought that was a pretty good one. I was happy with the way that turned out for the most part.
It's a fan favorite.
And I've noticed that y'all made a mention of Urban Cobb in that movie. Are y'all fans of him, or did y'all just throw out a name?
The Irvin Cobb Hotel is my favorite building in Paducah. So that's where I got that from. So, and I know a little bit of his history and stuff, because I really like the town of Paducah, and so I just kind of thought he would be a cool one to use for that particular story.
Okay. And then next up, we did this is where you start getting really trippy. PJ, you did Lucid, your little dream movie and all that, and you got Bill Johnson who played Leatherface in Texas Massacre 2 in it.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. We were filming his scenes just one day in Louisville after the convention, that horror convention that he came to. And then he came to the premiere. We had the premiere, and he was really great to work with. I had a lot of fun writing that movie, and it is a real head trip. It is all over the place with the dreams, what's real, what's a dream, what's not. It is not the kind of movie you can really casually watch. You really have to pay attention because of the things happening, kind of hooked together, and it's easy to lose track of where you are. But I still watch it and think, this is a really good movie. So, I mean, I do. I still really like it, but it's my sort of thing, what's really going on and what's not, what's a dream, and portraying that. And I got a whole bunch of people to stand out in the street in their underwear for a scene.
Yeah, I thought that was quite wild. So was Bill Johnson, did you have to pay him to be in it?
Yeah, we put him up at a hotel one night of the convention, and we put him up when he was here, and we did pay him some, yeah. But he was very reasonable. And, he's just such an icon, and so a good addition to the movie.
Yeah, and then he came back again for the next movie, Caretakers, and y'all got also Joe Estevez to be in it as well. He's kind of a mixed bag when it comes to like a fame. He can be like in a really good movie like Apocalypse Now, or he can be in a really bad movie like Ghost Baby.
Well, yes, I have to tell you that when I got a phone call from Joe Estevez, I remember going, oh my gosh, this sounds like Martin Sheen, because he does sound exactly like his brother and looks a lot like him too. But he was a real sweet guy, really, really sweet.
Yeah, he does sound an awful lot.
Yeah, that was
fun. I think that's how he got a lot of his jobs, just because he looks so much like his brother. Because he was a stand-in for his brother in Apocalypse Now for a lot of scenes.
Right.
Yeah, and he's got the name recognition. So and he's good too. When he really he does a lot of goofy stuff, but when he really sits down and you direct him, he can act. I was real happy with his performance in The Caretakers. He does a really good job of just allowing you to read his mind. I really loved him in The Caretakers. I was real happy with him in that.
And I guess y'all predate Let the Right One In, the foreign vampire movie,
No, we don't. No, Let the Right One In was before us.
Okay.
Before The Caretakers.
Yes.
Okay.
Slightly before.
The Caretakers had a review in Horror Hound, so that magazine. So that was we've some of our movies have popped up here and there in a few different magazines, which is kind of nice.
And I did not recognize Jessa Dockery first time I watched the movie. It was almost the second time. I was like, wait a minute, I know who that is now. And she looks really different in that movie.
Yeah, she's an albino.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty fun making her up as the albino, and I thought the albino character was pretty cool too. But I really like The Caretakers. There's a lot of different aspects to that, which are pretty cool. I always thought it would be interesting to really make the focus of the story the caretakers, because you see them in some movies, like you mentioned, Let the Right One In. They do, you do see a little bit more from the little girl's caretaker than you do in a lot of other vampire movies. But of course, Renfield was a main character in Dracula. In the Fright Night movies, you got to know those caretakers a little bit, which I always thought was interesting. So I always thought those characters were interesting. They're helping out these vampires, but they're never the focus. So I just thought it'd be neat to actually make them the focus of the movie and make the vampires, more of the backdrop. You're still in the vampires world, but you're seeing it through the eyes of these people who, for whatever reason, have decided to just devote their life to assisting vampires.
Yeah, you get kind of a believable explanation as to why they would want to be joining vampires and everything, and help kill other people.
Caretakers is a brutal movie, but it also has it's also very stylish. I think it has a little different tone than some of our other movies, and I think it's really beautiful in a lot of ways.
And I have to ask also, what's the deal about the novel Cajun PI by Jude Royd?
That's my husband. So we just had to he writes a lot, and he's written a lot of, he's got some novels on Amazon and stuff, but we just kind of put that in there for an inside joke. So we don't have to.
Yeah, that's one of his books. He's got a series of books with the Cajun PI character. So
right.
you know, we needed a book for the movie, so I thought that would be kind of cool to have it be his book. That's the centerpiece in that little bit of the movie.
And then y'all did Francis Stein, and I think that's probably your most perfect film y'all done.
Thank you.
Yes, it's probably the best one you've all done.
It has a lot of very strong elements, I will say. It's filmed nicely. The story has really finishes nicely. All the elements are there. I struggled with writing that one to get everything right, but I do think it is very watchable. A lot of people expect like a Frankenstein, the side of it's going to be a monster movie, Frankenstein. And it's like, no, it's like taking the Dr. Frankenstein and that point of view, and how would you modernize that with the female character? So,
yeah. And playing more of kind of like the mind and all that as well. Is that your big interest of playing with people's minds, literally, in your movies?
Right. Yes. And that's taken it just another step. One of my favorite things about Francis Stein is the fact that the music was written, the theme song was written by someone locally. And of course, all the piano stuff in there. I didn't learn to play the piece, extensively, but I did learn enough so that I could kind of match the piano in that. It was written and recorded locally. I think it adds a lot.
Aren't a lot of your scores come from, I guess, people around the area?
We do what we can with, especially like with the music and the credits for the credits or the background radio music. We do actually reach out to local people that we know, try to use that as much as we can. We've had some created for movies.
Widow had a great local guitar player, JT Oglesby, who did the majority of the score on that. So if you watch Widow, all the guitar that you hear, it's a very acoustic score. That's all original.
Yeah, except the opening piece that was written by my daughter's wife, who wrote it and sang it. Yeah.
Okay.
The Widow theme song. But yeah, so we do try to do that.
And one other thing about Francis Stein is that is our best ending out of all of our movies, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's not quite as predictable. All that. And I love the little touches that you did, kind of some of the ticks of certain people kind of gave away, who was in who. And even though you may think what's going to happen at the end, there's a little bit of a twist that messes it around. And
yeah. So thank you.
And all that. And then y'all's last movie, It Lives in the Attic. And I have to say, there's a way to go. That's probably the one way to go, is that movie right there. I don't know how to describe that one. How did that one come about?
Yeah, that's a crazy one. I just had a couple different ideas. That whole opening bit, where we follow Michael Kuhn through the woods. So it's called It Lives in the Attic, and the first 15 minutes of the movie is somebody camping. It really throws a lot of people off. But that it's I had that bit in my mind, and when I started coming up with a little bit more meat to It Lives in the Attic, I'm like, oh man, I can. Because I at first I wanted it to focus more on that story, and then I'm like, oh wait, I can really take this in a crazy direction as I started thinking of other stories, like the Barney character, because I had that the Barney, the nerdy Barney guy. I had him in the idea of that character and him taking care of that girl. I had that in mind for a different story. And so when I started thinking about It Lives in the Attic, and I thought of those two stories because I liked them both, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can tie these together, and I can go a real crazy route with this. And that's kind of how that started. And yeah, it's a crazy movie. I love it. I think it's a lot of fun, and I enjoy it every time I see it. I don't watch it often, but I think I had to watch it a few years ago for something, and I was like, yeah, this move's really nice. This is an easy movie to watch, and of course we've got the crazy club fun thing, which I love, and is really odd and weird, and yeah, it's just a crazy, wild, weird movie that kind of, but I think it kind of ties everything up at the end. Thing about it lives in the attic. The theme that that isn't really in your face is that nothing is what it seems. Nothing in that movie is what it seems. Like even the title, "It Lives in the Attic," you've got an idea of one thing, but it's really something else. And that's kind of the theme. Every character that you're introduced to, it's not quite what it seems, and you find out eventually what it really is. But that's kind of the ongoing theme in that movie: is nothing is as it seems.
That's only one of two times in the whole time I've known Steve that he's shaved his mustache, for that and a role in a play.
Yeah, so you went full character for that one. I was impressed by
I went nuts.
I was impressed by I guess the party scene, because there was a lot of things going on, but it wasn't explicit. I was quite impressed they were able to to pull it off. The same way, not feel like it's being like censored or restrained, but it's like just by little things happening in there.
It's funny because some people, this movie is kind of like a you love it or you hate it kind of a thing. And some of the people who hate it, they're like, oh, that whole scene was basically porno. It's basically just a porn. But in reality, where there's no nudity, everything is just suggested. It's disgusting, but it's just purely suggested. It's where your mind takes it. So we just give your mind enough fuel to imply what probably is happening, but hey, maybe it's not. But yeah, it's kind of wild because we really never show anything weird. It's all just suggested.
Yeah,
I think it tells you what kind of people we work with a lot, that we can get a group of folks to wear their underwear on the street, and we can get a group of folks to pretend like they're being pleasured in a room with each other or pleasuring themselves.
Do any of the actors ever regret doing these roles, especially like the party scene in "It Lives in the Attic"? Wishing they went too far or something like that, or
no, nobody's actually regretted doing it. But I have had a couple of people ask if because in the IMDb credits, the people in that scene are listed as masturbators. So I did have a couple of people say, I'm getting a new job. Is it okay if you kind of renamed that my character in the IMDb credits? Like, sure. That's the only objection we've ever had.
Oh,
I can understand that.
we have had people refuse roles, but when we ask the questions, we always ask questions on our application sheet that ask those kinds of things. Would you be willing to, or for example, would you be willing to be nude from the waist up? Would you be willing to have a simulated sex scene? Which so there are people who will say nope, I'm not doing that. But other folks are like,
but that's on. Yeah, we put that on our application so we know when we have an audition, if there's going to be some scenes like there is in "It Lives in the Attic," we'll have a little question and answer section of the application that allows us to know who's eligible for what part. So there are some people who will do anything, and there are some people who are very limited in what they'll do. So that gives us as for casting the movie, we know who's eligible for each part.
So Michael Kuhn was okay having his manhood cut off and lucid.
You know what? He'll
do anything.
that was a scene that I added later. The interesting thing about that, I had to keep track of the shirts, the shirts that were worn in dream sequences, because we did sequences at different times. and I would have to make sure that the actor was, wearing the right clothes. And I had her in the wrong outfit for something. So we went back to that house to film, to like reshoot a really simple sleeping, waking scene. And I thought, I think we need a little something more, like of a more intense dream, a little more, shocking. And that's when we thought that went up. And oh yeah, Michael was completely okay with that. In fact, there's lots of good bloopers of Michael having reactions to that. But yeah, you know what that is? That's a fun story. It's actually a turkey neck.
Really?
And we bought it when we bought the turkey. It came with, it was just a normal sized turkey, but you pull the innards out and it's got the neck and all that stuff. And it was the biggest turkey neck I've ever seen. I was like, okay, this will be fun.
One thing that's different from y'all's movies is at the end credits, y'all basically, gave everybody their spotlight. Does that go with theater where everybody comes on the stage, and they take a bow to the audience? Is that where that came from, or is that just the way?
Steve has good comments about credits because he's the one who came up with that.
Well, yeah, I have a theory that I don't think anybody in the history of movies has figured out how to do credits yet. Everybody just kind of copies it's a black background and a bunch of white names. That's what's been done for so long. I mean, back in the early days, they showed the credits up front, but it's always just, I still don't think anybody's ever quite figured that out. So that's just us kind of experimenting, trying to do something a little bit different. And, the majority of our cast, they're volunteering their time. The least we could do is give them a little shout out at the end. But yeah, I still don't think anybody, including us, I still don't think anybody's figured out how to do credits properly yet. One day somebody will, but I still don't think anybody has.
It is nice to give everybody a little moment, though. So.
It is a nice touch. I think a lot of people really like it, especially when you premiere them. They're all there and they start cheering, and usually their whatever family and friends they have with them start cheering as well with them.
Yeah.
Did y'all?
Yeah, it's nice to see.
Did y'all premiere all your movies in Madisonville?
Well, the third floor premiered in
did.
Paducah, but all the big
except for the third floor, but the big. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that. And so I've been to a few of them. That was always enjoyable to watch.
Yeah, it's a fun time. It's one of the best parts of all of it.
Yeah, the premieres are always fun. Yeah.
And all of them are on DVD, right? Except for third floor.
Well, if you want a DVD copy, I will make you one. Yeah. But they are, except we've run out of some of them, and everything's streaming now. So.
It Lives on the Attic is available free on YouTube.
Yeah, we have a few of our movies free on YouTube. It Lives in the Attic, Maniac on the Loose. I think Creepy Doll is. Francis Stein and Widow are both free on YouTube through our distributor's YouTube channel. So I think half of our movies are free on YouTube. And but they're all streaming in one way or another somewhere.
Okay, and the one question that's been bothering me the most is why are you not doing any more movies?
We took a break after 10, and we took a year off, and then we realized that we were still really tired, so we took a year off. And then we decided we'd write a book about everything. So you can get a book about our filmmaking experiences on Amazon. It's I forgot the name of it. The Cheapskate film. Cheapskate Movie Makers.
Cheapskate Movie Makers. Yeah.
Okay. I came across that book. I didn't realize it was by y'all. I saw Big Biting Pig mentioned in the index. I was noticing the index more than anything else before I noticed who the authors were.
Yeah, that's us. We wrote that. And then I think we realized that from writing the book that it was so much work to make a movie that we've sort of wanted to pursue some other things. I'm still writing, just not the making movies part of it. I'm still writing screenplays, and trying to get some interest, get them out there. I've had them in a few contests and gotten some good feedback. I'm actually currently writing a rom-com, so a little bit out of that. I do some theater directing still. I also started working full-time about that same time, which I just couldn't do both.
You
and
ran
Steve,
you ran a video business, didn't you? Do you still do that?
I do still do some. I kind of took a break from that for a while, but I recently did a couple of projects because I kind of missed it. And we talk about it once in a while. It's not that it's completely out of the realm, but Steve's had some. He's always was interested in writing the horror stories, and has started working on some things along those lines. And so, I don't know. You just want to grow. You don't want to keep doing the same things. So, Steve, you want to add to that?
Yeah, and I started doing books as well. I have book versions of every one of my movies, except for It Lives in the Attic, and that'll come eventually. But so that was fun to do. I've written several books. Some of those movies that I wasn't fully satisfied with the movie. I was able to change in the book, like in Goatsucker. We're very limited on what we could do with the monster in the movie because we're working with no budget. But in the book, the monster is completely different. The monster swings from trees and runs like a horse and has like this predator camouflage. It's really awesome in the book. And I also changed the fates of some of the characters in the movie. Their fates are a little different in the book. And Spirit Stalkers, that book has a completely different ending because I was never really fully satisfied with the ending of the movie. So I wrote a whole different ending to that one. And I'm also now doing a podcast. I recently released the Maniac on the Loose Scary Stories podcast. I have a new episode out every Monday where it's me narrating a few scary stories that I wrote.
And where do they go?
So that's what I'm working on a lot right now. Yeah.
Where do they go to hear that?
Maniacontheloose.com. That's where you can go to find out everything about everything we do.
Yeah, I listened to that Spooky Stories, the one that you were reading of those earlier this week. I do IT work at a hospital, so the fourth floor, the one about the abandoned wing of the hospital that the guy's going into resonated.
Oh, like, cool.
Yeah, I've been there before. Yeah.
Those abandoned floors on hospitals are creepy, man.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so.
And I was curious about one book you wrote. It's called The 9 Lives of Ski Mask. And since Ski Mask was your character, Maniac on the Loose. Is that
that's kind of my masterpiece, I think. It's both a prequel and sequel, mostly a prequel, but also a sequel to Maniac on the Loose. And it centers around the Ski Mask character from Maniac on the Loose. So we get to find out everything you want to know about that guy. So you watch Maniac on the Loose, you're like, okay, this guy's a complete psycho. I wonder what he's like at home. Well, you get to see his home life. Does he have a family? What else does he do? What does he do for fun? What's this guy? How'd he get the job? And yeah, so it really goes into all that. It's all of the characters from Maniac on the Loose have parts in the series. It's a 9-part series. So it's the 9 lives of Ski Mask, and each episode is like life 1, life 2, life 3, and it goes up to 9. And one of the cool things about the 9 lives of Ski Mask is it intersects with some of the other movies, especially the caretakers. Ski Mask, the character of Ski Mask actually enters that world. So he interacts with like the Mason character and caretakers who I played. He has a battle with the albino that you had mentioned earlier. And he really pisses off the Catherine vampire in that. So, and we also get to see like in the caretakers, a lot of that story is the Jack character played by Nick Faust, and his insecurities about being the head caretaker because his mentor recently passed away. Well, in the Nine Lives of Ski Mask, it's kind of it's Life 4 vampires. You actually get to meet his mentor because that's a little bit of a prequel to the caretakers. Another cool thing is, and it lives in the attic and the Club Fun party scenes. Ski Mask actually has to go to Club Fun because of this mission he's on. And it just so happens to be the same exact timeline as that section, and It Lives in the Attic. So he's actually interacting with all those characters like just after you see them in the It Lives in the Attic scene. So yeah, it's a 9-part series. It's available as a book on Amazon, but it's also on my podcast, the Maniac on the Loose Scary Stories podcast, in audio form. So that's out there, and so people can read it or they can listen to it. But it's really cool. I loved doing that. That was really neat to revisit those characters and give them a little bit more life. And yeah, I'm pretty proud of that one. That's a fun one.
So are you trying to create the Big Biting Pig cinematic universe?
It's just kind of happening that way. I just thought it would be fun to kind of do that. And yeah, anybody who enjoys the Big Biting Pig movies will like the Nine Lives of Ski Mask just for that, just to see the way it's interwoven within some of the other worlds. It's pretty cool.
You had mentioned once, Steve, about doing a Civil War film. Have you ever considered doing continue doing that, or?
I've never really given too much consideration to that. I think that was somebody asked me if I had an unlimited budget, what kind of movie would I do? And that was one of those types of movies that would take a big budget to pull off, but would be kind of fun to do. But so, yeah, I'll never have that kind of budget. So that'll probably never happen. But, I might write some shorter stories to go on the podcast that kind of takes place in that time period.
And how often do you do new episodes for the podcast?
It's every Monday. So every Monday I release a new episode. It's usually got anywhere from 1 to 5 different stories within that podcast. Typically goes 30 to 40 minutes. So yeah, every Monday at 11, a new one drops.
And since it's a Lovecraft show, did H.P. Lovecraft have any influence on y'all's work? Any?
I mean, I know, H.P. Lovecraft's reputation and some of the other people that he influenced, but honestly, I really wasn't that into horror before we started making horror movies. So I have to say no. I'm probably more influenced by Stephen King, but that's, but he was influenced by Lovecraft. So
I think you probably would like maybe like this case of House Dexter Ward. I probably would start with maybe what that story there as being first. I think we like that one the best.
Okay, I'll check it.
And see, I really like the Reanimator movie. I actually have a Reanimator poster in my bedroom right now. So I always like that movie. I've just, I've as far as inspirations go, I don't really narrow it down to just one or two people. I've been inspired by different horror movies and horror stories. So that's, Reanimator, definitely the movie. I never actually read that story, which I'm sure is probably better than the movie, but I always liked the movie. And that was fun.
The movie I really like, and but they're almost like different animals. They're like little elements from the book they're in the movie, but it's like its own little thing. And so it's like you can't really like compare them together, except for the fact there's a guy named Herbert West and he's reanimating the dead. That's about it.
Right.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
so it's one of those that it's just based on that story, but they didn't really follow the story itself.
Not too
inspired by. Inspired by.
Okay.
A lot of the characters' names pop up, but they're doing kind of different things.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
Yes. Anyway, y'all have anything else you want to add? Anything I forget to mention that y'all would like to say?
Not really. If you want to find out anything about, my podcast or the Big Biting Pig movies or the books or anything, you just go to maniacontheloose.com. That'll take you to everything. Nice and
Because
easy.
Steve is the maniac on the loose. I have
Alrighty.
some things under
Yeah,
PJ's
yeah.
Productions, but that's I'm not doing a whole lot there. So, but I appreciate it.
All right. Well, thank y'all for being on the show. And David, and David's not here. Never mind. Richard and everybody else. I see the stars are no longer right. We must cease all discussions until they align again next month. 30 Minutes of H.P. Lovecraft is sponsored by the newly reopened Hidden Valley Hiking Tour. They're under new management and promise less El Chupacabra sightings this time. This podcast was created in association with the LovecraftPod.com and the Logan Spectre Fiction Group with the help of the Logan County Public Library and the Great Old Ones. Special thanks to Katie Tyson for her Technocraft and Joshua Dukes for his Mawa. You can listen to past episodes at Anchor FM. Not FM, never mind.